know, you are doing non-stop interviews for the past month plus. We're very grateful for your time today and welcome to the program here on RT.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here on the program today. Just before I really start getting into the big details in Iran, I want to get your reaction first to apparently Donald Trump saying that he sent, quote, a lot of arms to Iranian protesters. I'm trying to understand if this is referring to the very violent riots in January with countless external actors involved, because if that's the case, you and I spoke in January, Professor, and you even told me you had suspicions of this already being in play. Your comments?
Absolutely. It's just an admission of what we already knew. And Western media, which was lying at that time, saying that these were peaceful protesters and the Iranian government officials or police or government forces were just gunning down protesters, that was all a lie in order to create an environment to justify this murderous war of aggression. And in this war, they've been bombing protesters. They've been bombing people on the streets who've been protesting against the U.S. aggression and against the Zionist regime's aggression. A 15-minute walk from here, there was an airstrike on one of those gatherings of people, and a woman was murdered just 5-6 nights ago.
Yeah.
Yet you don't see this in Western media. But this admission is key because the Israeli regime has already admitted it. But it just shows that these violent rioters, and 3,117 were killed. All the other numbers are fake.
Yeah.
But whatever the real number, the fact is that the West did it. They're guilty. When Trump says he sent in weapons, that means they know who exists in Iran to receive those weapons.
Right.
That means those networks were already in place, and they were active on the ground at the behest of the West. So this is not just an admission that they sent weapons to murder people, but it's an admission that they have that network, and it was that network that was murdering police officers, burning ambulances, burning clinics, and also it just shows these Kurdish terrorist groups in northern Iraq, what role they play alongside the United States in murdering Iranians.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you talk about these external actors involved. I mean, I know you and me both spoke about this in January. The New Year celebration, Mike Pompeo, he said, wishing a new year to all the Mossad agents walking beside the Iranians. It was like, well, there we go, admission. You've got these guys who are working there, receiving the weapons and exacerbating the crisis. Let me ask you, if I may, let's bring it up to today, Professor, if I may. The countdown is once again on. Trump promising hell for Iran if it doesn't open the Hormuz Strait. What are your expectations? Because Iran continues to remain quite defiant as it's waiting for a reasonable, long-term peaceful resolution.
Absolutely. And this shows that Trump is not winning, is he? If he was winning, he wouldn't be using such abusive language and such, and threatening to carry out crimes against humanity openly. And he's been doing it repeatedly. This war was supposed to end in a couple of days, and it failed. Then they said Iran is running out of missiles and drones, and we see that Iran is hitting them hard day after day after day. And it's really the United States that's lost this war, as well as the Zionist regime. And Joe Kent's resignation letter reveals everything. He was a Trump appointee, a high-ranking intelligence officer, said, look, this war is about Zionism. It's about the Israeli regime. They impose it on the United States. There was no attempt by Iran to threaten the United States. There was no move by Iran to produce nuclear weapons. This is all about Zionism. Yeah. So the misery that Trump and Netanyahu are imposing on the world and the economic crisis is thanks to Zionism, the Israeli regime, Netanyahu, and Trump. But the fact is that Iran is not going to accept any ceasefire that doesn't meet Iran's key demands. Yeah. Because we already had a ceasefire 9 months ago. And then what did they do? They just regrouped, rearmed, and attacked us again with greater force.
Yeah.
So the Iranians are going to make sure that peace is created in an environment where people can live in security. After all, last night, they bombed another one of our universities in Tehran.
Yeah.
These criminals know no boundaries.
Yeah.
And remember, the United States was pretending that they were doing this to free the Iranian people. They've been bombing university after university, hospital after hospital, school after school. ambulance after ambulance, infrastructure, petrochemical plants, uh, gas plants, gas infrastructure. This is not to free the Iranian people. This is
Yeah.
to destroy the Iranian people.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong comment and absolutely right, Professor, just to be absolutely frank. I mean, you talk about Trump and his expletive-laden rants. I mean, a lot of people are saying he's cracking under pressure. He's screaming and shouting here, and yet it's worth noting, truths come quietly, but lies come loudly. I wanted to get your opinion, if I may, on the so-called rescue operation of this American crew member of the F-15 fighter jet. Vast wreckage of planes, the C-130, helicopters, but they were downed apparently not in the area of the pilot, but they were in fact close to the Isfahan nuclear plant. Your thoughts of the entire operation, please?
Well, before I respond to that, very briefly, I just want to point out that when Trump says he's going to send Iran back to the Stone Age, did you see any media outlet in the United States and in Europe become outraged? Did you
Nope.
see the Guardian or the New York Times say that he's threatening to carry out a Holocaust against the Iranian people?
Nope.
No, because the political elites in the West, the media, they're all morally bankrupt. They're all criminal. They're all evil. If they had any honor, any dignity, any humanity, they would have expressed outrage. Even those who hate Trump, they won't speak out against this. They'll just speak out against Trump and say that he's destroyed the U.S. economy or he's made a catastrophic. Call him out for threatening to carry out the greatest Holocaust in human history. But with regards to this so-called rescue attempt, after all, the Western media and the United States will always say that this was a heroic operation and a victorious move, but it was a failure. The fact that they lost two planes, very expensive planes, and they had to destroy them, the fact that they lost helicopters, it's clear that this was no success. And I think it's quite clear that this was more than just some rescue operation. We don't have any footage of the pilots or what happened, but those planes were not in that area. And I think that they were actually probably trying to do something else, but they failed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, why would you send in a C-130, big, heavy transport craft to pick up one single guy? They sent in this huge transport craft, a whole bunch of choppers too. Yeah, two of them, right? So clearly, Professor, they were up to something else. A lot of analysts, Professor, that I've seen, they actually describe what happened as an Iranian ambush. The Iranians for years have hypothesized, how will the American Israelis come at us? And they knew that the American forces were going to come through this mountainous region to get to this specific area. And the Iranians reportedly set up mobile launchers, mobile radars, and performed an ambush, which absolutely shocked the Pentagon and the White House. Meantime, Professor, there are reports that Washington and Tehran are perhaps indirectly speaking about a potential short-term, long-term ceasefire. Do you know anything about this? Can you help me out?
Well, first, I just want to add that the United States will, in anything that happens, whether it's this sort of operation or they'll always claim victory. But then the truth gradually comes out. And in this particular case, I think it's quite clear that the Iranians were well prepared. And this is probably the reason why so many generals were purged. They were purged right before this because they knew that the whole project of assaulting Iran was a very bad idea. And I think this is good evidence of this. With regards to talks, there are no direct talks between Iran and the United States. There's no doubt about that. That's 100% for certain. There are messages always going back and forth, and there have been messages going back and forth for years. Some of them have gone through Russia in the past, some have gone through Oman. So this is nothing new. The Americans are giving messages. So far, Iran has not received any message that meets its core demands. Until Iran's core demands are met, there's not going to be a halt in hostility. So the United States is going to have to change its tone. Iran is willing to go down the road of mutual destruction. I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this on RT for years. They should have known this. The Americans professed shock. Trump professed shock at the beginning of the war that Iran would strike back at U.S. targets and assets in the Persian Gulf region and those complicit regimes that allowed them to carry out this assault. They should have known. But if the United States goes for taking Iran back to the Stone Age, I assure you, Iran will take them back to the Stone Age as well.
Yeah, strong comment right there, Professor. Listen, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. There's a video going around out there. I'm not sure, but I think it was released by the IRGC. It shows Mojtaba Khamenei going into an operations situation room. It looks like it's very deep underground, some kind of high-tech bunker. But it shows him walking into the operation room, and on the big screen, you see Israel's Dimona nuclear facility right there on the big screen. Can you give me any insight on that? Your comments?
Well, obviously, I don't know any details about operational issues, but the fact is that Iran's capabilities are still hidden. Everything that we've seen till now has been a miscalculation. The Americans and the Israelis were saying Iran has this certain number of missiles. We're continuing to hit them every day. It's obvious that they had no assessment about our missiles, no assessment about our drones, no assessment about our production, or our air defense capabilities, or our air force capabilities, or our naval capabilities that are all underground in tunnels alongside the coast of the Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman. They have miscalculated big time.
Yeah.
And Iran's most developed technologies have yet to be used, and Iran's allies in Yemen, in Iraq, and elsewhere, they have yet to make their final move. Right now, Iran is prepared to go up the escalation ladder. But we didn't start this war, and we do not want escalation. But every time the Zionist regime escalates, Iran will escalate further, and Iran has already shown this. It's clear to everyone on this planet that the Israeli regime doesn't care about the global economy. It's willing to sacrifice Indians, Brazilians, South Africans, everyone for their selfish ethno-supremacist regime, but Iran will not let them have the upper hand.
Professor, I've only got about 45 seconds left, but I just wanted to ask you on a personal level, you're there in Tehran. You've been doing these interviews constantly for well over a month particularly. I just wanted to ask you, how are you there? How is your day-to-day life there? How are you faring?
Well, since they've made direct threats against me and they put a bounty on my head, I have isolated myself from my family. So I isolate myself from everyone.
I think we've just lost the signal there with Professor Saeed Mohammed Marandi. What an absolute shame. He was just telling us exactly how he's faring, not just professionally, but on a personal level, being in the capital city of Tehran, daily bombing campaigns by the Israelis and the Americans. We understand there are some supply chain breaks, and we were just getting down to what it's like for a civilian with day-to-day life in Tehran. We will get back to the professor when we can. For the meantime, thank you for joining us for this live broadcast.